We had a good few weeks, maybe even months of peace. But soon enough, things began to roll downhill. I think the first pebble was the haircut. I remember she had arranged one for him at her salon. I was out in the garden and had just walked in to get a glass of water when I heard her sobbing and poor Kyle in over his head and trying to calm her down. Turns out that he had politely refused to have his hair dyed and cut short like yours. I took her upstairs, made sure she had her pills. After she had calmed down, I put her to bed and went downstairs to speak to Kyle. But he was long gone, the front door swinging in the wind. She should have stayed that way. I don't know how she did it. But somehow, a few days later, Kyle was back in the house. New haircut, new outfit, the works. But something was different. I could tell. It was more than the clothes. He had lost the warmth in his eyes. Something horrible was waiting out there on the streets for him, I was sure of it. Was he being sexually abused? I do have my suspicions, but I don't know anything about living on the streets, so I'll keep them to myself. What I do know is that my wife had forced this kid to make a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. I'm not sure which we were. After Kyle came back, the atmosphere in the house changed. No more laughter in the kitchen, no more denying the problem. My wife was taking advantage of a desperate, abused young man and was forcing him to do things he didn't want to. There was a part of me that believed that was where it would end. She would have a nice boy around, she could pretend was you, and we could adapt to that. We were even keeping a poor young boy off the streets, and we were helping him get on his feet. After things settled down, I would find a way to help her, and everything would work out okay. That part of me pretty much died as the days went on. Things became even worse. It was as if, by not stepping in then, I gave your mother courage, validation almost in what she was doing. I'm an idiot.
They were up before I had
a weak, useless coward and a pathetic excuse for a man. Letting my wife play with Kyle was like letting a stray dog eat at your table. And just like a stray, she kept demanding more. When she realized I wasn't prepared to step in, poor Kyle began to really suffer. She started hitting him if he didn't play along. She made no attempt to hide the fact she wanted to call him your name. She even made him eat the same food you did. Food he was allergic to and left him in agony. She began to exhibit new patterns, making Kyle hold her hand when they left a room, making him watch children's TV with her, and reliving your youth. I began to observe her during their interactions, and noticed that whenever Kyle spoke, your mother would quickly begin speaking over him. Or if it was necessary for him to speak, she would turn away and close her eyes, her fists balled in an irrational, white-knuckled rage. He learned quickly that the best thing to do was sit in silence and let it happen. Eventually, he would be allowed outside and he could have his respite. God knows how bad it must have been out there for him to keep coming back to us. It didn't take long before things went too far. It only took one step. And then everything came crashing down. I woke up that night in a daze. Must have been about 2 in the morning, which is really unusual for me, because as you know, I sleep like a boulder. So, in uncharted territory as I was, it took me a couple of minutes to register what was happening around me. Eventually, I realized I was alone. The space where my wife had been was empty, replaced now by a chaotic pile of old clothes and torn sheets. It was too dark still to make anything out, so I heard the sound first, a low muttering from the corner of the room. I bolted into a sitting position, staring in the direction of the whispers into a sheet of blackness as my eyes slowly adjusted to the absence of light. Eventually,
God dang!
features of the room came into focus and I saw your mother. She was kneeling in the corner of our room behind a curtain. On the bed, I was only able to make out her feet. The rest of her body formed a silhouette against the fabric that clung to her skin. The sounds from behind the curtains grew louder, and I began to make out the words between muffled screeching and breathless sounds of now familiar irrational rage. His fucking voice. Better shut his fucking mouth. He doesn't sound the same anymore. He's my fucking child. He better sound the same for a fucking child. I crept closer, not trying to be quiet or anything, but she was oblivious. She kept repeating herself over and over, completely unaware that I was inches away. She began pounding at the wall, rocking back and forth with decreasing abandon, until finally I shook myself from my trance and called out to her. Then she was on her feet, yowling like a cat, all claws and shrieking fury. She came at me without warning, or clothes, or anything resembling the woman I fell in love with, had saved me from myself so many years ago. I held her back as much as I could. I guess it was just a few scratches and bruises in the end. What hurt most was the paranoia. She was so vicious, so scathing in a way I had never seen her before. She was convinced it was my fault she was like this. That it was my fault you went to college. I feel disgusting that I left your mother alone all those times. I should have quit my job, found a way to work from home. She was right, really. I owed it to her. I abandoned her when she needed me, and I encouraged her only son, her only reason to get better, to leave us and build a new life where you wouldn't need her anymore. So even when she eventually gave in to her exhaustion and collapsed on the floor,
Hey, get out of there.
as I stood there bruised and battered, my own tears mixed with the blood that stained the sheets, I felt more than ever that I would stand by her. Idiot, stupid, weak, cowardly failure. I have failed my family in every possible way. I was understanding when I needed to be a man, and when I should have been understanding, I was too busy being a blind idiot to the damage I was causing. Don't blame your mother for what happened next. She is sick. She has always been sick. This is all my fault, and certainly not yours. I bandaged myself up, piled the broken furniture in the room, and took your mother to bed. By the time we were all finished, the sun was almost up, and it was time for me to get in the shower and head to work. That whole day went by like a blur. I don't really remember much, actually. I don't remember driving home, walking up to the front door. I just remember going for the handle and it being warm, really warm. The oddness of the sensation glued me in place. Staring at our front door and absorbing every detail. It was a strange moment. But the stress and the grief almost got the better of me. I couldn't honestly tell you how long I stood there, but at some point, the door opened, and beyond stood a woman that used to be my wife, your mother. She looked the same, but was now completely unrecognizable. She was smiling. Her clothes were torn in places, her face looked bruised, and it looked like someone had torn out a clump of her hair. My first reaction should have been concern. Instead, I reacted with the same numb acceptance that I show towards everything these days. She grabbed my arm and pulled me further into the house, giggling with delight as she led me down the hall to the door of our basement.